Well, I guess this is a video I'm making now. Anyways, this is a Super Pocket. It's a thing that was released by Hyper Megatech in 2023. I have the Capcom version here, which comes with about 20 games. Please notice that 25% of the games on here are called 1940 something. Listen, I'm not the person to comment on each of the games in this, except Mega Man, which we'll get to that later. Basically, it just kind of seems like an unremarkable retro handheld you'd see at a Walgreens. No different than the My Arcade handhelds. You'd be kinda right. But take this little plastic thing out, which I swear was so much harder to remove the first time, but I didn't get footage of that, so you'll just have to trust me. It says you can get more games on this website. Once you're there, you'll see that they're cartridges. This stock photo-ass console that looks like it should be playing Granddad is actually a legitimate thing, and it haunts me. It's an evercade. I thought this was a well-known thing, but I've talked to several people about it and they had no clue, so I should at least introduce evercade. The original evercade handheld was released in 2020, the best year. It was released by Blaze Entertainment, which owns Hyper Megatech, so I guess that explains the connection, and it kind of sucked. I saw a video by Ashens about it a few years after it happened, and I was like, oh shit, it released? I thought it was going to be like an Amico situation before that was even announced. I was not really impressed with this thing. All the arcade games were the home ports, which were sometimes okay, and sometimes it was bad dudes on NES. There was a My Arcade thing of that game that was haunting my Five Below in the $10 section for a while. And NES games are kind of worthless. They've been like that for a while. Same for SNES and Genesis, and I think we've reached the point where PS1's included in that. Not that they're bad games. I mean, some of the best games of all time are from that range, but they're just shoved onto retro consoles like this because they're cheap to license, even cheaper if you want to steal them for Famiclone stuff. They're extremely low spec. Some of the lowest spec, in fact. You can run NES games on a fucking calculator, and you can clone the hardware for extremely cheap. NES games are not impressive in 2025, and they were not impressive in 2020. They weren't all NES games, though. They had ports from other consoles, like the Atari collection having 2,600 ports of arcade games. I don't know if that's better or worse. At least Atari ports are kind of unique, I guess. Admittedly, not all of it was bad. A lot of collections for actual console games were released. Mainly generic collections, though, things you usually see on retro consoles like this. They also do collections for specific consoles, which was cool in the case of the Lynx. Nobody cares about the Lynx, so seeing this happen to weird consoles like that is always fun. One day. After a while, they finally figured out what MAME was and released actual arcade collections for the evercade. You can tell they fucked up by how it's presented. They make it super obvious that it's an arcade collection. None of that NES shit. They also published some indie games here, like this collection here. Is that Daniel's Heat Gaming? Good for them. Some of the indie games here were also even developed for older consoles. Neat shit. So that brings us to modern day. For the games, they eventually released an upgraded console, the EXP, with 3 whole more buttons. Good for them. One of them switches it vertically for shmups. Neat shit. Looks uncomfortable. It also has a bunch of games built in. All Capcom games. There's more Capcom games in this console than on the Capcom Edition Super Pocket. What are we doing here? You could put Mega Man X on the Capcom Edition Super Pocket? At least there's Mega Man 1, but like... See what I was talking about earlier? Okay, what next? Can this one play arcade games? I can't tell. Wait, it's all Capcom games again. You put the best material on anything but the Capcom Edition Super Pocket. Worst part is, the whole point is that they're all on cartridges, but these games are built into the console. I can't take the games from the EXP and play them on the Super Pocket. So what's the point? It's like this for all the consoles they do. I couldn't play Mega Man X on the Super Pocket if I wanted to. Oh, that's a lie. You'll see later. There was also a home console, the Evercade Versus. Based on the name, you can tell it has a killer feature. It's called multiplayer. It comes with 1 controller. So I have 2 cartridges for this ecosystem, I suppose. Duke Nukem Collection 1 and Pico Collection 4. If you don't know who Pico Interactive is, they basically just buy the rights to games people don't give a piss about anymore and give censored bubble bath babes to the people again. Oh yeah, spoilers for that. One of the games here is just bubble bath babes. I'm going to talk about the Duke Nukem collection first. I only got the first one because that's the one with the games people like. I bet Pico would love the second collection. This one is Duke Nukem 1 and 2, fully remastered. That's nice. And then there's... Oh, I get it. It's a setup and punchline. It's a joke. It's Duke Nukem Total Meltdown on the PS1. I mean, it's fine. It makes sense since the Evercade has the same amount of buttons the PS1 controller has. But it's not a great version. It has way too much slowdown to be worth anything. Even the Saturn version ran better. You're not supposed to be worse than the Saturn. That's my job. I think I know why they did this, though. Duke Nukem Total Meltdown has an exclusive episode, Plug and Pray. It's never been re-released officially, but here you have the evercade coming in with the worst possible way to re-release it. Civi11 talked about this episode, and apparently it's pretty tart, but I can't get far enough to judge it. Whoever decided that you need to get close to the lasers to see them is going to a new layer of hell. That's why it's called Plug and Pray! The controls in this game are just weird, since there's not enough buttons on the original PS1 controller, and this has the same layout. That's the thing with the PS1 not a lot of people talk about. A lot of games were kind of held back with trying to support the original PS1 controller. It's got mostly standard FPS controls for the era, but because of all the inventory items, L2 is like a modifier button where you can hold it down and the buttons do different things. It's fine, it's just a little confusing and takes a little while to get used to. I wish they did what the Saturn version did and had the inventory buttons in the pause menu. That worked pretty well. It's also kind of imprecise, but there's no real way to fix that. You only have a D-pad. It just doesn't make sense to me. You put all that effort into Duke Nukem 1 and 2, and then you skip out on the games most people care about. I mean, it is just an existing source port, but that person worked on it really hard. It was reverse engineered from the original because the original source code was lost. That means people like these games a lot more than I do because I just think they're okay. Like, they're not bad, they're just fairly generic 2D platformers in my opinion. I didn't play through all of them though, and they do seem better suited to this console than Duke 3D is. But maybe that's because they put actual effort into it instead of just putting the most accessible and generic port possible. The other collection I have is the Pico collection for, yes, the guys that own Bubble Bath Babes censored. The main focus of this collection is Glover, which is certainly one of the games of all time. It's also the only one I really have anything to say about. The other ones are in the realm of cult classics. I'm only at one cult, however. Glover is certainly, I mean, it's an interesting idea. Playing as a glove who has to transport a ball to the end of the level. It suffers from one problem, though. Too bloody difficult. So, for the PS1 version, they made it a lot easier by breaking the physics. So, given the Duke Nukem collection and the fact that this system only has the amount of buttons as a PS1 controller, obviously they made a new version that's heavily based on the N64 version. They put all that effort into Glover and not Duke Nukem. Gotta love the glove, I suppose. I mean, I haven't analyzed the code. I could be completely wrong. But all the resolution options are the same, and there's no other N64 games on the evercade as far as I know. I mean, it's not like it's that great, though. There's a lot of slowdown that isn't there on the N64 version. It's also just clearly one of those games that benefits from an analog stick. When you throw the ball, it just snaps to different positions when it's clearly meant for an analog stick. It's not the best version of Glover, but at least you don't need a whole room to play it. Since I wrote this down, I've been procrastinating on this for so long, they re-released Glover on modern consoles. It's bad, apparently. I'm thinking they might have based it off this version. So that's the only game I care about in the Pico collection, and that's all the games I have for this. I'm probably going to get more games eventually. I know there's Tomb Raider and Legacy of Kain collections. Never played either, but they look interesting. There's also a flash card for this. It's called the EverSD. I don't get it. It just makes it a RetroArch machine. The whole point of this console is that it uses cartridges. If I wanted a RetroArch box, I could just grab my Ouya. It just makes the system an emulator box that's worse than the 3DS. So why do I like this thing? I mean, it's objectively not great. It's just a weird emulator box that you need to buy the games for. I think it kind of took off because having a physical cartridge is more fun. People want to get away from streaming and digital goods to the point where they're acting like physical media died off. It didn't. You just weren't paying attention. I just think it's a really charming retro portable. Not one I really play on, though. Back to the bottom of the bag to be forgotten about forever.